Good evening. I'm Queenie Choo. I'm the CEO of S.U.C.C.E.S.S, which is one of the largest nonprofit social services agency in BC. Through our work internationally across Canada and in BC, and also right here in Surrey, one of our country's fastest growing municipalities, we have supported the settlement and integration of immigrants and refugees over the last 43 years. My topic is Beyond the Keys to a Successful Welcome. BC has historically been and continues to be a popular destination for newcomers to Canada. In the first 6 months of this year, BC already has welcomed over 23,000 new immigrants and refugees. And many of these newcomers, particularly refugees, have made Surrey their new home. It is estimated by year 2018, around 50% of Surrey's population will be newcomers. And last year, almost a quarter of government-assisted refugees destined for BC chose to settle in Surrey. So while settlement and integration is a long journey, refugees and newcomers are highly resilient and show tremendous courage and strength. With the appropriate community supports in place, they achieve phenomenal outcomes. We've all heard about notable Canadians who came to this country as refugees, such as Minister Mariam Moussef or former Governor General of Canada, Michelle Chong. Refugees also make significant contribution to our economy. For example, a recent study by Vancity indicates that over the next 20 years, Syrian refugees, in fact, will generate over $560 million in local cumulative economic activities here in BC. Refugees are also highly entrepreneurial. Of private incorporated business owned by immigrants in Canada, 11% are owned by those who came as refugees, which is just slightly less than 12% owned by those who came under the business class. The children of refugees also achieve great success. A national study of the educational outcomes of children immigrants found that high school graduation rate of government-assisted refugees is over 90%, and the university completion rate is about 29%, which is higher than some who came under other immigrant classes, and those who are third-generation Canadians or higher. When we think about successful integration of refugees or newcomers, we got to understand the factors and conditions that will help both refugees and newcomers, as well as the host communities, be successful. These include broadening our lens to think beyond the initial welcoming stage that we often see in the media. No doubt, the initial stages of settlement are important, and we must invest the required resources into services that provide essential information and resources for refugees to achieve settlement. But we must also deeply understand the next steps that ensure social inclusion of refugees and newcomers. This encompasses not only their sense of belonging, but also fostering that active participation of refugees and immigrants into the social, civic, economic, and cultural fabric of the community. This requires two-way streets. That includes adjusting our approach as well as accepting and recognizing, valuing those newcomers and refugees' important role and contribution to the community. The social inclusion of all newcomers into our community obviously is very important as it supports the vision of a diverse, inclusive, and harmonious Canada for all. To achieve this vision, I would like to raise the following points for you to ponder. While we heard so much about the inspirational stories of refugees and newcomers setting up businesses and employers coming forward with job opportunities. The continual support of businesses is needed to ensure economic integration of refugees and newcomers. We need more businesses to offer refugee jobs, at least at a living wage, that allows them to support their families. In addition, business must also be supported to better integrate refugees and newcomers into the Canadian workplace, which can pose its own set of unique challenges. Many refugees, particularly those of very low English proficiency, require not weeks or months, but years of language training to achieve a basic level of English proficiency. That would enable them to get higher paying and stable jobs and more actively engage with their communities. For women, language training is needed to ensure they're able to communicate with healthcare providers, access parent support services, and establish relationships with their neighborhoods. Long-term and stable investment by government is needed to increase service providers' capabilities to deliver more language training. As many of you know that the recent the government-assisted Syrian refugees in BC are young, and many of them are part of large families. Almost half of the Syrian government-assisted refugees in the province are between the age of 0 and 12. Family programming is needed to support both parents and children, particularly as they experience and negotiate complex pressures from settlement, family, and trauma. The community needs to recognize complex pressures, to recognize the complex internal and external pressures on refugees' families and support them to build positive relationships, not only within the family, between parents and children, but also between family and the community. We also need governments and decision makers to invest in community connections, programs that celebrate diversity, as well as anti-racism programs. We need funding for programs that share best practices with employers, service providers, and police on how to actively include newcomers into their structures, to ensure that they are able to gain that knowledge and skill on how to sustain, and also a healthy and inclusive communities that are free of racism, hate, and fear of ourselves and the successive generation we are accountable to. Obviously, we have lots of work going forward. We know that more refugees are coming to Canada, and many will be arriving in the coming 2 to 3 months, in fact. Refugees and newcomers make significant social, cultural, economic contributions to Canada. And research has clearly demonstrated that newcomers are needed to support the continued growth of our country. The successful integration of newcomers goes beyond the initial welcome. Rather, it's about the social inclusion of newcomers into all realms of community life in order to build a vibrant, diverse, and inclusive Canada for all. Thank you.